rates going lower in Russia next year?
Well, we expect, I think to a very big extent, the central bank already used this potential, but we believe that with inflation around 3.5%, that could go down for another 0.5% maybe, or 1% within the next year or so.
The big interest here in Russia, at least in the equity market, has been on dividends as well. Can you give us any guidance on what these lower rates and the economic outlook mean for your own payouts coming into next year? Because I know you've had to scale back to meet Basel III requirements.
This year is good for VTB. We expect the record profit of around 200 billion, plus minus 5%, maybe no more. But the problem for us is, of course, the capital adequacy, because the introduction of Basel III required a lot of capital, and as you know, we are under sectoral sanctions. We can go to the market. From this point of view, our profit is the only source of our capitalization, and that's why, for example, last year we paid only 15% of our profit rather than 50%, which was our general policy actually, and actually a request of our major shareholder, the government. This year, we think that if there's no any additional burden on capital, we can pay 50% to investors. Unless, as I said, there's something which might affect our profit on the very last stage.
I wanted to ask you more broadly about the government's push here in Russia and the policy measures that are being made to stoke growth. When you look at the outlook, there are a number of concerns that we've been talking about. For example, the World Bank says weak investment, slow growth in exports, oil production cuts, and a hike in the VAT mean that this economy is only going to grow at 1% next year. Are you encouraged by the efforts that the government is making?
My expectation is, I believe in the new government policy, like in the new Roosevelt course in the late 20s, early 30s probably, because we announced the so-called national projects strategy. It means that there's expectation that within the next 5 years, the investment will be invested in the Russian key sectors like digitalization, like transport infrastructure, like education, around $380 billion, and 2/3 will come from the government, and 1/3 should come from the private investors. And I think if we manage to effectively use this money and this program, I think we can reach a much higher economic growth, above 3% even. But it's based on the mainly on the government investment, plus in addition, of course, a further improvement of investment climate. That's right.
The other issue that you have is that the firm is also operating under US and European sanctions. When President Trump first came to power, there was great hope that this might mean an improvement in the relationship between the US and Russia. Do you see any scope for a further improvement, perhaps next year or in the coming years? And what's the outlook for sanctions here? Because this is a big issue for you.
I'm not a big expert in politics, but my expectation that we should talk about this maybe only after elections in the United States, because now America is going into the new cycle, political cycle. We'll focus on elections. There will be a lot of fights, which already we saw over the last 3 years since Mr. Trump came to power. Or did he come to power?
You think he's going to stay in power?
I don't know. It looks like at the moment he has good chances, but I don't know. Again, we should expect some more specific policy on part of the United States, because I think after the results of the Mueller report, the anti-Russian, at least anti-Russian stance somehow weakened, but it might be revived during the election campaign. We don't know. It is very unfortunate, because we want a good relationship with the United States. You know, our president is always ready to talk to Mr. Trump, other officials from the administration. But I'm afraid that unless there will be more precise policy on the part of the American administration, and for this he should somehow probably agree with the Senate and with the Congress. That's my opinion.
Very, very quickly, biggest risk event in 2020, what is it?
As always, I think for Russia there is lower oil prices.
Okay, lower oil.